I would like to introduce you to a very special segment calling upon our tentacled world of rock and roll friends around the world to talk about great moments in rock and roll history. This is a really special one. I'd like to introduce you to Guy Sykes, who was the only Pantera tour manager who ever existed. Obviously, they need no introduction. They're one of the most significant heavy metals bands of the 1990s. They played a very special show in 1991 in Moscow at a very special festival, which was the first ever outdoor rock concert in the Soviet region, basically. So they opened the show. So they were actually the first band to play in that region, basically introduce Russians and the Soviet Union to American rock and roll.
How
So
many people were
yeah,
there? Would you say?
a million. This is Guy Sykes,
Hello.
original and only Pantera tour manager, and legendary tour manager since then, and architect. You're an architect of rock and roll in some ways.
Yeah,
A
no,
human architect.
I guess I don't think architect, but I grew up in the heydays of
Yeah.
where we're at now. So I was along for the ride. Let's just say that.
How did you know? How did you know it was a heyday? How did you know it was special? Because today we're going to talk about a very special day. But was there a moment then that you were like, "Oh, this is really something," and this is like a new thing? This is yeah.
I mean, the whole Pantera story was I saw them in a bar. I worked at a bar in this little town where I went to high school in Texas, and they played, and uh, they were doing two sets of cover songs and a set of originals every night. And their dad was driving them. Jerry was driving the boys to and from the gigs, and they were playing in the bars, and to see them from there up into the uh, all the way through the end of the career was magic. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to be along for the ride, so it was wonderful.
What was the cover song that everyone lost their mind over? What was their like king hit cover?
Well, they covered everything. They covered Def Leppard. They covered Van Halen. They covered Wasp. Vinny used to sing "Blind in Texas." Drums. They did Quiet Riot. I mean, it just when I started seeing them was in 82, 83. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean that was the first time that I saw them was 82, 83. Yeah.
Well,
83.
Kirk Weinstein, I was talking to him about this recently, and I was talking about why did Pantera be that band? As there was a whole community of bands. They were the band that really stuck out and did something on a whole other level to everyone else. I'm like, why? And he's like, well, they were arena ready. When they got their deal, it wasn't like they were just, stumbled in on a deal. They had already been working the floor, and like there was plenty of blood. There was dried blood on the ring from many years of fighting in it. Like,
I mean, that was what when I first saw them. It was the whole package. They carried their not a ton of lights by today's standards, but for a club band, they had their own lighting, they had their own audio, they had their own sound guy, they had pyro. Granted, the pyro was homemade, but it was still pyro, and we're lucky there weren't any deaths or decapitations. But here they were in a club, say a 500-seat club in the middle of a small town in Texas, and they had Kiss Like Flames because those were their heroes. Kiss were their heroes. Van Halen were their heroes. Def Leppard were their heroes. That's the music that they grew up with, and they emulated that when they did their live shows. So from the club days, that's that's what they were aspiring to be. And again, they did as Kirk said, they put their chops in. They did the club circuit, which was Thursday through Sunday in towns in Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma, playing 3 sets a night,
really?
4 nights a week. Yeah, they would play 3 sets a night. They'd play an hour set, take a half-hour break, play an hour set, take a half-hour break, play an hour set, and they do that. So one weekend we'd be in Fort Worth, one weekend we'd be in Dallas, one weekend we'd be in Shreveport or New Orleans or Houston or San Antonio or Austin or Lawton, Oklahoma, where there was a huge Army base. I mean, we'd go up and play the weekend, play the weekend up there. So, it was it was not, it wasn't like, it wasn't, I, I can't really say, I don't really want to say today's music, but that it's almost like a minor league baseball kind of farm team. They grew up, you
Yeah.
know, going for the big leagues,
Yeah.
whereas today's guys write a song, you know, mostly on a computer, you know,
With a
and play a
plug-in.
song. Yeah, they play a song, put a record out, and then they go out on the road. Well, these
Yeah.
guys cut their teeth playing clubs for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Then they got the record deal, and then we went. So that's kind of
That's the thing. The whole concept of longevity. I think a lot of like really young kids don't get that it's so much about your ability to weather the storm. Everyone can have a moment. It's like,
yeah.
you know, and those guys, because I think this is a good, we'll use a baseball, wait, Super Bowl, that's football. They played, I had like a really good like lean in from this, and then I just lost my moment for a second. But I mean, Pantera played the Super Bowl of rock concerts in 1991. You played
Absolutely.
the first ever open air rock concert in Soviet history, and they were the first band on stage. I mean,
actually, we were the second band. There was
really?
I thought there was there a local? I can't. You know what? I can't remember if there was a local opener or not. I cannot remember.
And look, an elderly New York Times article told me that, but it could be wrong. Let's not diminish.
I cannot. I mean, I remember a whole lot of.
He's like, no, we didn't open
because it's so special. But I can't remember if there was an opener or not. It was us, the Black Crowes, Metallica, and AC/DC.
So chill. It was just a chill ass night. Like, and funnily enough, AC/DC never played festivals in this country forever. They're just like, nah, we're not doing it. We don't need you. We will fill the stadium just fine. So that's actually quite special as well. But yeah, how did that come about?
We were in the studios. It's a long story. We were in the studio doing the tracks for Vulgar Display of Power. We had already done the tour, Cowboys from Hell, with Exodus and Suicidal, and doing our own dates and working our way. So I was actually doing my day job at the time when we got the call. You know, some of the techs worked in the studio with the guys, and the studio was here in Arlington, in Pantego, and they were laying down tracks. And we got the call, or management got the call from Mark Ross, who was the guy that signed Pantera to the deal to Atco back in 1990. And Mark Ross's dad, I forget his first name, but he was the head of Time Warner.
Oh, wow.
The CEO of Time Warner. So
Casually.
they had this grand idea to put together this huge concert to celebrate the end of the Soviet Union, the demise of communism, whatever, the change of the political structure of the Soviet Union. And they decided to put this concert together. And it was quite the ordeal because we were not tour ready. The other bands, Metallica and AC/DC, were doing Monsters of Rock, and they were in Barcelona before they were in Moscow. So we had, they put it all together, and, there were some brilliant minds doing all the logistics behind all this. You had Michael O'Hearn that did both of the Live Aids, London and Live Aid, and many Grammys and Super Bowls and things like that. So he was one of the production coordinators. Of course, Jake Berry, AC/DC, Metallica, he's a legend, still out there doing it to this day with U2. So, the logistics were just mind-numbing. So you've got the Monsters of Rock tour, and then us. I don't know if Black Crowes were on Monsters of Rock or if they were brought in too, but we had to get our gear ready and road ready to ship it to Europe, and get it over. I believe there was about 30 or 60 days of lead time for us. Maybe it was only 30 days, but we got it together, and we flew over, and the Monsters of Rock part of the big boys, they had to use because of where they ended their tour, and the distance between Barcelona and Moscow was just, they couldn't drive. So they had to load the trucks onto Antonov transport planes, and they flew circles until they got all the trucks, because there was no gear. You know, there what everybody thinks of today, where we pop up and do a concert at any stadium anywhere in the world, you know, there's usually some sort of local gear that can support that. You know, like Soundwave, one of those festivals, you know, all the PA and the infrastructure is locally supplied. Well, they had to bring a stage in. They had to bring a stage in, they had to bring PA in, they had to bring in the lighting, they had to bring in all the band gear, they had to bring in catering, they had to bring in everything. So they were flying these giant circles of multiple transport planes from Barcelona and points all over Europe into Moscow to put the show together.
And no brown M&Ms at all. None. Wasn't allowed. There's rules, okay? It's the rules.
So for us, it was weird. So I was working my part-time job at the time, and I had to make an excuse that my mom was ill and I had to go away for a week. I could just say I'm going to Moscow.
You can get away with it side of stage, like you can just say like,
I needed to keep my job. They still had months of recording ahead of it. You know, this is the beginning of Pantera, so we weren't rolling in the dough yet. I mean, this is album. So, you know, we all had the crew guys had
the bathtub full of money yet, you know, because that was rock and roll.
So we flew over. I think we flew Dallas to New York, and then New York over to Moscow, and then it was a blur. But it was
I was gonna say, who was the most excited? Who were the brothers, like, were they like, who was kind of giddy about it? Who was pretending to be cool?
I think everybody was excited, just because everybody was excited about it, just because it was such a big deal. I mean, it was huge. We didn't know what to expect. I mean, you know, we're like, okay, it's a concert. You know, we're going to play with legends, you know, with AC/DC and Metallica, and we're going to play in Moscow for all these kids. And that was the dynamic that stuck out to me, was, you know, everything from the barricade back was kind of our world, you know, even as rudimentary as it was, because, you know, we didn't have dressing rooms. We had army tents. It was like, we had Russian army tents, but, you know, it was, you know, to keep us out of the elements, a place to kind of chill, you know, because the air base was way outside of Moscow, on the outskirts of Moscow. And, you know, we had caterers and, you know, plenty of food and stuff to drink and yada, you know, all of that. The barricade forward, it was, you know, kids and just fans that had nothing, you know, that had zero. I mean, it was just to see that whole dichotomy between what we were experiencing and what our lives were like, and then seeing what their lives were like, was just, it was mind blowing. You know, they were, you know, scraping together $1 or $2 to eat, you know, and we were living high on the hog behind the barricade, you know.
Well, it's Western, Eastern, you know, it's the world. You experienced
the
reality of the world. Yeah.
I mean, you know, you hear stories about Westerners going to behind the Iron Curtain and trading Levi's and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Seriously, a pack of cigarettes could get you a Russian army officer's uniform off his back. That is nuts. I mean, there's the thing too is as it was, we weren't like the first thing there, but we were part of, you know, the beginning part of society starting to change in Russia.
What did it smell like on that morning? What is the it's a random question, but, you know, why not? Yeah.
Moscow still smells pretty much the same that it did 30 years ago. No, it's a very
oh, it's a random question.
It's a very gritty, polluted city. I mean, they still use a lot of coal to heat their homes. You know, gas, you know, what are Treblants or whatever they're using, you know, and you know, the smell in the crowd was obviously a festival crowd, you know, the unbathed, you know, the unbathed in a muddy field.
They are gross. Yeah.
They
I
were
mean, that
ready.
is your, yeah.
They were ready for rock and roll.
They call us the Cowboys from hell. But what I want to hear right now is the people of Moscow. Hey, 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 go do it!
We got on stage, and that was probably the most incredible of my 30-something years in this business. That was probably the most incredible moment ever, was
Really?
when we hit the stage. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just electric. I mean, the intro to Cowboys ran, and then just to see all the kids, all the hair just kind of stood up on my arms. That was that kind of magical moment, because whether they knew the song or not, just the energy of over 1 million people. I mean, as far as it's hard to fathom what 1 million people look like. And it's just, it was endless. It was endless. It was endless. You couldn't see the end. You couldn't see the back of the crowd.
I can't actually even imagine that. Like, if we really think about it, and it must have been incredible, because you don't actually, those songs are such capital S songs. You don't need to have heard them before to know how they go, like those guys were so fucking good that the alchemy, it's like this amazing alchemy of those personalities. Like, everyone in that band was an action figure, and really good.
It was a blur. If you go back and see the videos, then you can see that you can find them online. But if you see the video,
I've seen them.
It was just like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, boom. And 30 minutes or 25 minutes of whatever it was back then. It was just like nonstop, bam, 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 bam. There was very little banter other than Phil's normal banter that he would say if he was in Spokane, Washington,
The classic,
half the crowd probably couldn't understand him, but the energy that the band gave, the energy that the crowd gave back to the band, the groove of the songs, it was just like, it was incredible. It was totally incredible.
What didn't we see? Like, what was happening in between them that we couldn't see from the crowd or from the cameras or anything?
Just just the normal chaos of putting on a show. If I look back at it, I mean, it was, it's just everybody scrambling around, making sure everything was working, the power was correct, everybody's wireless frequencies were working, because that was 30 years ago. So wireless was a new technology. Plus we had to compete with the Russian military channels and their police channels and just all
there's a lot going on.
There's, and just trying to, keep things going, keep the local officials, in check, and, everybody, it's like a show now, but on 10. So think of us, being thrown into a situation we'd never seen before. Conversely, the Russians we were a bunch of strangers, and they'd never seen anything like this. They'd never seen a stage be put up in the middle of the field, and all the amps and all the speakers and the lighting and the pyro and the trucks and the gear and the number of technicians running around. It was very, it was just as exciting for the Russians as the local Russians as it was for us.
You guys came back, and Pantera made probably, the one of the most important albums, definitely of the era and definitely of their career.
The songs for Volga were written or almost written, by the time that we played it.
Did coming back from that experience inform that, like the sessions and stuff? Do you think it had an impact on them kind of realizing?
It definitely had an impact. It definitely had an impact, because again, going back to my personal experience being on stage, right, as Rex's, doing Rex's basses that day, just the electricity, the energy of 1 million plus people just going absolutely berserk from note one through the entire set. There's never ever been anything like that. There's never been a moment like that ever. I've been to seen big crowds, done download 1,000 times. That's 125,000 people. But I mean, it's just like sound wave, even the shows in Limp Bizkit in Samara, that was 350,000. That's still a huge crowd. That's less than a quarter of the people that were there in Moscow that day. And it's just, you cannot, it's just so surreal. It's a place that all of a sudden, you know, you have this vision, the evil empire. That's what the Americans grew up with. The Soviets bad, America good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, Boris and Natasha were a cartoon character. You know,
Yeah.
you know, and that's, you know, James Bond against, you know, the Russians. There was always the Russians, you know, from Russia with love. So to experience it with music was just something, you know, again, it was a universal language. Everybody was as amazed as we were with the Russians were just, you could feel how excited they were to, even though they never heard of us. Some of them probably hadn't even heard of AC/DC before, you know, think of that, you know, some of them probably hadn't even heard AC/DC before. It was the thing was, this was created by, you know, Time Warner as a way to bring, you know, with the help of the U.S. government and all the other powers that be that, you know, I'm probably still unaware of, but they brought music as a celebration for a historic event in the history of the world. And it was amazing. And it was just, it's the greatest thing I probably did on, as far as a show, you know. I've had some great shows and had some wonderful things happen, and been very blessed to have to live the life that I have. But you know, that was a seminal moment in my career, was Moscow in '91 for sure.
Well, that's a really beautiful thing. And it's one thing to sell 1 million albums, and another thing to actually have that physical experience of and feeling. I mean, did you guys travel much outside the state for a long time? Like, did you kind of stay in like Southern America for a long time before you kind of went overseas, or?
Well, no, when we did Cowboys, we went on tour with Exodus and Suicidal in 1990. So we toured that, and then we played, you know, some of the clubs, small theaters on the Cowboys tour. And then of course we did Europe with Judas Priest in '90.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, that was our first time out of the States, and that was definitely an eye opener for.
Really?
Oh,
the Priest tour?
Oh yeah, it
was that wilder than Exodus and Suicidal? Well, I mean, it's Rob.
Well,
He's the Liberace of metal. He's amazing.
The Priest thing was hard because it was two bands. It was us and Annihilator on one bus for 3 months with one hotel the whole tour. The other times we were showering at the gig, eating at the gig. It was mayhem, to say the least. But it was, you know, we went to Yugoslavia when it was still Yugoslavia. It was before it got broken up. Yeah, you know, it was not like touring Europe is today. You know, it was shops closing at 5 o'clock. There was it was rare to even see a McDonald's. You know, only maybe the capital cities would there be one. Every with a pre-cell phone, so you know, we had to use calling cards, and every country had its own different calling card because every country had its own different, you know. So it'd be like going from New South Wales to Victoria and having to have a different plug to plug in the wall for the electricity, for one, a different phone connector to use to plug in a telephone,
and everyone's pretty drunk.
Yeah, everyone's drunk. and a different currency in every, so a different currency. It was pre-Euro, so there was a Deutschmark, the Belgian franc, the French franc, the Spanish peseta, the Italian lira, the Yugoslavian drachma. It was, or dinar. It was the Swedish kroner, the Norwegian kroner, the Danish kroner, the Finnish kroner. Yeah, it was
not the British
pound. Yeah, it was nuts.
You know, I mean, you're kind of famous for being in the Volga videos and stuff. Is there a treasure trove? Infamous.
What?
Infamous. Let's say.
Yeah.
Is there like a treasure trove of unseen footage that will one day see the light of day? I think,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
working. We're working on it. It's one of those things where video is so ubiquitous now
yeah.
with streaming and YouTube and everything else that it's hard to monetize it. But there is a ton of footage, and I know that both Rita and Bobby Tongs are working on Pantera home video #4.
Oh no, that's gonna be great. Yeah, it's like, yeah, but all these other people do it, but it's not those. Those are the ultimate. Everyone knows they're the ultimate. They're like
Because
the heavy metal parking lot.
it was yeah. It's just like heavy metal parking lot.
Yeah, I love that.
It's raw. It is what it's not a reality based thing. You know, everybody's
Yeah.
used to reality TV. If everybody is anyone's ever seen a reality TV show made, it's not reality TV.
It's such an irony calling it that as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing less real. Like,
Yeah.
and
No, exactly. But this is the ultimate reality behind the scenes.
yeah,
Obviously there's some stuff that we staged for the camera, but that's us actually doing that. But
yeah, it's
those are real moments captured on the road,
Yeah.
and that's what made those home videos infamous,
Yeah.
and at the same time successful.
What was the most elaborate thing you guys ever did for the cameras that we may or may not have seen?
I think you saw it.
Like you were like,
It was when we had a day off. I think it was Evansville, Indiana, or somewhere like that, where we made the big paper mache pot leaves and the big giant paper mache joint that we put smoke bombs in that Philip had, and we rolled those out on stage. They were either on skateboards or furniture dollies or something. But we made those out in the parking lot of a Holiday Inn or Super 8 or someplace in Evansville, Indiana. That was pretty elaborate. Daryl would come up. Daryl was usually the mastermind behind all of that. He would come up with an idea, and he's like a dog with a bone. He was not going to let it go until it got done. And that's
I suppose he had that rallying power as a person as well to get everyone on board.
Yeah, he was always, no matter what, he was always go, 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 Mr. Go, go gadget, go, get him, you know.
Is that like creative?
Yeah, that's creative genius. That's coming up with something, coming up with an idea, whether it was an idea to build the paper mache things, or Bobby Tongs to dress up like something, or by somebody thinking of seeing something in a mall and making it something that made him think of somebody,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that guy, those would look great for him, or his mind was always going. There was always creativity behind whatever he did. There's always a purpose behind what he was doing and why he was doing it, and I think that mindset goes along with the amazing talent that he was as a guitar player. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's this? I read something recently. It said all great artists collect and connect.
Yeah.
They collect things in life and they connect them together in a new way. And whether that's a guitar solo or a giant paper mache joint, they're all creations from some other place where all things come from.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's. I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was always Daryl, if he was at home, whether he's writing or doing his 4-track stuff, just him and a guitar, or him and a keyboard or a drum machine, just making up songs, or writing stuff, or building stuff, or coming up with a t-shirt design, or designing a guitar, whatever it was. His mind was always working, always creative, always on. So. Yeah, and he would always see something in everything. That's what made him special. So he would see something where there was a fault, whether it was an attribute or a fault, he would always pick up on it. He would see that.
It's like seeing with different eyes and different ears, and like that hypersensitive.
Absolutely.
Thing.
Yeah. So.
And I think that's why people connect with it so much, because maybe people like that.
It comes from a pure spot.
Yeah.
It's pure. It's not contrived.
Yeah, you can't get out of it.
People can see through that, Yeah. Some people like contrived because it feels good.
The whole world feels like that sometimes.
Oh yeah, but I mean, there are people that but the pure essence, if you see somebody, that's why people are amazed when you hear a singer that does some amazing a cappella thing. They're not hiding behind they're not hiding behind tracks or an accompaniment.
Yeah.
That's them. It's
Or
their
backing
voice.
tracks.
It's true. Yeah.
I've seen people mime to a stadium.
Yeah. Well,
There's backing
sometimes
tracks. There's backing tracks.
sometimes there's technical reasons for that, but
This
then,
is true. I
but,
shouldn't
but
judge. This is your
but
milieu.
you see purity, like
Yeah.
the um what was it? Is it the George Harrison? Yeah, it's the George Harrison introduction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where Prince plays it solo on My Guitar Gently Weeps. That's the most amazing guitar solo you'll ever see. YouTube it. It is the most passionate guitar solo that you will ever see. And
I would like to see that.
Eric Clapton was asked once who the best guitar player was, and he said Prince. Hands
I
down.
could have seen that acoustic tour he did at the end, and the
Yeah.
ticket for like $300, and I was like, oh, $300. And then he died like a year. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, that is
Always
one
worth
of
it.
the artists that I regret not being able to see. So.
He played a show here maybe ages ago, and a friend of mine went, and they said the house lights went up, and he stayed and his band jammed there for like 2.5 hours. They were like, no, we're still playing. Who's gonna stop Prince?
And unfortunately, I was unable to see him. But
Yeah.
last time I was in Australia, I did get to see Elton John for the first time.
Oh, really? Was it good?
Oh,
Oh, I love Elton John. I think Benny Turpin as well. Like, fuck, what a melody. Like, just the pair of them. What a lyricist. Like, Bernie's just off the chain. Like, they don't make him like that anymore. So, I have kept you a great deal of time, but I think there's some great things.
To catch up with you.
Yeah,
this answered your questions. But yeah, Moscow was epic, and not just for me, but for the band, for all the bands. I think. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that if you asked James and Lars the same questions that you asked me, that they would have very similar responses, because there's no way that anybody can walk away from that show not having it touch, their soul, just because of what it meant to those people, not to the people, don't want to call them this, to the fans, to the people that we were playing for. That's what it's all about. If you play for 5 people or 1.5 million people, the connection between the band and the fans, and just to see it multiplied, as far as the eye can see, is just, like I said, it's the most amazing show that I've ever done in my career.
This is an experience of the void.
Thank you for watching the whole video. It's really great to see you at the end. You came all the way through with me to the end. If you've enjoyed the content today and you'd like to catch more of it forever, make more of it happen, I would very much appreciate you subscribing. Also, there are many more videos here and here.